everyone, welcome to Naomi's Bookshelf. Today we're going to go over my recommendations for Buzzwordathon in August. So in August, it is a really easy title. It is anything that's an object in the title. So this is basically a list of some of my favorite books that happen to have objects in the title. So welcome to it. I'm going to save my Agatha Christie book, I think, for last. So you can maybe make a guess down in the comments what you think is the Agatha Christie book with an object in the title that I'm going to recommend, which is one of my 5-star books for Agatha Christie, and I highly recommend it. So I want you to leave your guess down below if you have a guess for my Agatha Christie book, but I'm going to start off with some others that I highly enjoy and highly recommend. The first of which I had put on this list back in January, was The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. And the reason why this is such a startling thing is because in August we are doing Buzzwordathon, which I am very happy to be a co-host of, which is where you read books about or inspired by Dr. Faustus, who basically made a deal with the devil. And this is a book that is a Faustus-inspired or Faustus retelling. So if you wanted to partake in Buzzwordathon and do the object in the title, The Picture of Dorian Gray is a perfect choice. This also is one of the host reads as Rainey's reading it. I will link Christy Lewis's announcement video down below, but this is a really great choice and I'm so happy I put it on my list back in January. So highly recommend this one. This is like a paranormal Victorian novel. It's very short. This is about a man who is very enthralled by a painting that is being done of him. And as he looks at it, he says, "If only I could look at this beautiful forever." That's kind of what he says. And that is where the story takes off. It is a deal with the devil, and it is a wonderful paranormal story, and I highly recommend it. So check this one out if you've never read it before, and if you read it in August, especially the second half, you are participating in Buzzwordathon. So one that's like Agatha Christie but not is The Album by Mary Roberts Rinehart. This one is a very interesting book, and I don't want to tell you too much going in because I think it's best to go into Mary Roberts Rinehart books knowing next to nothing. This is a book about two people who used to be in love but are no longer connected. Jim, who is the partner or the man in the relationship, has now married someone else, and it is a story about these two former lovers, but it's also a very interesting mystery and in-depth one. I highly recommend it. If you've never read Mary Roberts Rinehart and you like Agatha Christie or those Golden Age authors, you need to read Mary Roberts Rinehart, and this is a great one to start off with. I highly recommend it. I think it is well worth the effort. And not that the effort is much, because it is a very quick read. A nonfiction is In the Heart of the Sea. This is by Nathaniel Philbrick. This one is the true story behind the events of Moby Dick. So Moby Dick was written based on the events of this ship that went down. It's called the whale ship Essex, and this is the story of the whale ship Essex. This is about the ship and the crew and how they set sail from Nantucket and how they ended up shipwrecked. Well, not shipwrecked, but their ship went down and they ended up on these little lifeboats, and how they managed to survive. And some of them did not, and some of them did. And it is very interesting, and I really enjoy this look at nonfiction and almost like a survival story. There's a lot of elements that are survival, a lot of elements that are history, a lot of elements that are about the nature of the whales, and it's just a really fascinating book, and I highly recommend this one. There's a movie about this as well from the same title if you're interested in this at all and you just want to kind of know what you're getting into, but I really recommend it. I would recommend a historical fiction which is told in dual timeline, typically my thing, but this is Orphan Trained by Christina Baker Klein. I think I've recommended it before for some reason, but I don't think it's been for Buzzwordathon, so I'm counting this as an okay thing. I try not to double up. But this one is about a young girl who was on the orphan trains where she was sent west to try and find a new home in the past, but also in modern day time when a teenager who is doing vandalism has to do community service, and she ends up meeting this older lady who ends up telling her story as that young girl. It is quite a fascinating tale, and it's really heartbreaking. It's very short, and I think you would enjoy it if you like historical fiction and you've never read this book. A middle grade, which is also historical fiction, is Soul Lanterns by Shaw Kuski. This one is total 5 stars. I fell in love with it in March and it immediately went on this list no matter what. This is about children who are the next generation after the atomic bomb. And this is about them trying to create a memorial for the big festival, but also trying to experience what happened because they were not there themselves. And this is a book about them going around and asking all of their parents, their grandparents, their neighbors about what the experience was like on that day when they went into town and just were living their lives when the atomic bomb went off in Hiroshima. It is very powerful. It is just recently translated, and I think it is an amazing book that everyone should read. It handles the source material so well, and the author herself is a second generation survivor, so I think it is so handled perfectly. It is just wonderful to read about a difficult time while also looking at the grief and the new life and the hope, but also truly embracing that without discouraging or taking away from that experience. The Language of Flowers is one that I've definitely recommended before, but I'm going to recommend again. This one's by Vanessa Diffenbaugh. This one is about a child in the foster system who ages out, and she basically learns how to do flowers and how each flower or each plant has a meaning. It's very powerful, but it's really a lot about the foster system and how when you age out, there's no one there to help you. It's really about her, this girl, and how she survives. I can't remember her name because it's been so long. I'm due for a reread, but it was such a powerful book about the foster system and also how she survives and how she holds herself together and how she gets on her own feet, but also how she takes the language of flowers and uses them to help others, but also uses it to help heal herself. Wonderful book, highly recommend, especially if you're interested in foster system or adoption or anything in like that realm. I think it's a really good book for that. A children's book, which you might not think of, is Chitty Chitty Bang Bang by Ian Fleming. Ian Fleming is the author of Bond, and he wrote a children's book called Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. I grew up on the movie and I read the book and thoroughly loved it. It is like Bond for kids. It is so action-packed, so adventure-filled. There are bad guys, there's the heist element, and it is so much fun. I really recommend Chitty Chitty Bang Bang if you are at all interested in reading a middle grade book that is like Bond, and that is all I can say to make it the best point. It is Bond, or it is like that kind of thing for kids. Highly recommend. The next one I would recommend is Arsenic and Adobo by Mia Peace Manasala. This one is a really fun one. I think that this series is really fun to read. I really enjoy them. They're not the most in-depth mysteries that I can't solve, but I really love the world that it is in. I love the cozy mystery element. They're not super cozy, but they are really like they're building a world about the Filipino culture. They're also building a world with these different friends and this different society in this small little town surrounded by food, and the food is the highlight of it. I love it. This murder mystery series in Arsenic and Adobo, we have Leela, who has been accused of murdering her ex-boyfriend after he died in their family restaurant, and she is trying to figure out how to stop this before she gets actually arrested. It is really fun. I really liked the series, and I'm so excited for book 3 to come out. Book 2 is called Blackmail, and I can't remember the other one, but book 1 has adobo in it, which is a food, and I highly recommend it. I think the second one also has a food in the title as well, but highly recommend the series for this title in particular. The next one I would like to recommend is The Marrow Thieves by Sherry Demelin. This one is a young adult dystopian where only people who are Indigenous are able to dream. And so they are under attack and they're being hunted for their marrow because people want to, I'm not sure exactly how, I don't think it's explained in the book, but their marrow is being hunted, and then the marrow will help other people dream too. So they're under attack, they're under constant following, and it is really about them, this band of Indigenous people trying to get away. And this is a Canadian book, and I think it's like a required reading. It should be a required reading for anyone in Canada, but it's also a really interesting look at how the residential schools, if you want to like look at it through that lens, which it is in part of that, but it's also really impactful to talk about how the culture is really critical to the Indigenous people. And I think that this book is wonderful for that. So highly recommend the Marrow Thieves. I think it is wonderful, and I think it's not like my type of genre, but I think it is wonderful for what it is, and I definitely got a good rating from me because of that. So did you guess the Agatha Christie? I definitely had a few options and I was torn. I could have recommended several, but I'm trying to save them for future Buzzwordathon recommendations because I don't like to double up, like I said. So I went with one that has multiple detectives and very few suspects. Does anyone have a clue? It is the Cards on the Table, or Cards on the Table. This one has 4 detectives as they are invited to a dinner with 4 murder suspects, and the host of the party, who was none of those 4, is murdered. So the 4 detectives put their heads together and try to figure out which of the 4 potential others could have killed their host. It is really fun because it's closed mystery, so you only have those 4 people, and the 4 detectives are working together to solve it. The 4 detectives in this book are Superintendent Battle, Adrienne Oliver, Poirot, and Colonel Race, and they are working together to try and figure out how and who and what could have happened and when, because of the way that they were all playing bridge at this time. So that's why it's called Cards on the Table. I thought this was a perfect one for objects, and I also give this one 5 stars. This is one of the best Agatha Christie's. Not like this is the best, but it is one of my 5 stars for Agatha Christie, and I highly recommend this one, especially if you're wanting to get to know more of Agatha Christie's main characters so you can see which ones you like. So this is one I would highly recommend. So this is my Agatha Christie pick for objects. So for my own choices, I have one that I'm definitely reading and one that I would like to read. So for the one that I am definitely reading, it's going to be Enola Holmes and the Boy in the Buttons. This is the 6.5 novella in the series, which I am reading with Chris. So this is the next book in our buddy read, and I'm definitely reading it in August. So I figured that's easy. Buttons is an object, perfect. I also would really like to get to If the Shoe Fits by Julie Murphy. This one feels like a summer read. It takes place on like The Bachelor, and I am really wanting to get back to this one. So The Shoe, I'd like to get to this one, but those are my only 2 big choices. I have The Horse and His Boy and The Magician's Nephew coming up, but neither of those really feel like objects because they are all living, talking people or animals. So I'm not gonna put those in for objects, but I am excited with the 2 upcoming ones that I have potential or that I definitely have on the get-go, and especially since objects is such an easy one, I'm sure I can fill that multiple times over. So please let me know down below what you're going to be reading for objects. What are your favorite object titles or some of yours that you're going to be choosing for this upcoming month's buzzword? I'd love to hear what your recommendations are down below in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please like and please also subscribe if you would like to. I will see you next time. Bye for now.